Okay, no, thank you. So I know in your report you had stated that, I think it's 4 times a year, I could be wrong, I quickly was reading it as you were testifying as well, that there's a mild acid that gets flushed through the piping?
Yeah.
The tubing,
Yeah.
4 times a year? Do you know which acid that is?
It's usually sodium hypochlorite.
Okay. And does that just flush through? And I think I heard you say that it comes back and you collect it, or is that allowed?
Comes right back to the treatment plant for treatment and disposal.
Is there any seepage into the ground when
Yes.
those flushes happen?
Yes, because it goes through the drip emitter.
Okay.
In order to go through the drip emitter, part of it goes out.
Okay.
And that's why we use a very dilute. Everyone doesn't like to hear acid, but it's the reality. A lot of our treatment plants don't actually do it. I always recommend designing it. I don't want biological growth in there.
So I know you testified that the daily flows for this property were based off of the 323 EDUs that you had calculated times the 250 gallons per day rate for an EDU for, 80,750 gallons per day. And that the system is designed for a maximum of approximately 89,000 gallons per day?
The disposal,
Yes.
it hasn't been designed at all. I did a quick, in order for me to determine, did the soil scientist who testified before me identify sufficient areas that I felt comfortable testifying there was enough disposal capacity? That's how I did that, to know that if it was 80,000, I wouldn't feel as comfortable. He has approximately 10% over, so if there's areas that get removed, which happen. The rule of thumb that I do is I always design 110% when I start the approval process, because through the mounding analysis, through soils, through something, I lose 10%. You just didn't design enough for you, but I'm not losing, but I always anticipate losing something.
Sure, so, not that homeowners would do this, but I guess the concern with your daily flow rates doesn't account for residents hooking their sump pump into the systems and things of that nature. What would that impact have on a drip irrigation system?
Well, the actual wastewater production based on pump and haul of individual residents, and these are large Upper Euclid Toll Brothers houses, is 146 gallons per day per house. So we designed it for 250. Why do we design it for 250? Because some residents going to hook their sump pump. There are going to be future leaks in laterals. Some kid is going to drive over top of a clean out with his lawnmower, not tell his dad, and hide it, and surface water is going to get in. Sanitary sewer pipes crack over time. Not the PVC the way they used to, electrified clay pipe. Is some road master going to repave the road, and all of a sudden the manhole is the low area instead of being flushed, and some water going to get in there. So we definitely account for it that way. But what was actually required is what's known as a Chapter 94 report, which is done annually every year. So if we start to see these things, an increase of I&I, that's analyzed every year, and then those sources of I&I have to be identified and removed as it goes down through, or DEP takes action against it and does what's known as you enter into a consent order and agreement, which would result in what's known as a corrective action plan, which would require the owner of the system, township authority, third-party PUC, to identify those sources and remove them.
Okay, thank you. So you had testified earlier to a comment about the tubing.
Yeah.
Saying that, by doing the acid treatments and all that, there is no real maintenance on that. But I guess, as you said, there's I&I work. If someone drives over something, crashes things, if manholes are lower, I&I work gets into there, I'm assuming that there is a life cycle to that. And I was just curious, what is kind of the life cycle of a drip irrigation plant as well as the...
We don't know yet because none of them have worn out. So they've been around, so we don't know. But what we do, when we break out the fields, we break them out into subzones, because at some point, it's a piece of plastic. It will wear out, whether that's 50 years, 75 years, at some point it's going to wear out. There's a membrane that pulses. Any piece of rubber that pulses eventually is going to tear, and you'll get more flow there. So the way it's set up and sectionalized is that you can take, there'll be 20 to probably 50 zones on a system at that time. You can take 2 zones out, so you'd only lose about 4% of your total capacity, where you rip those tubes out, you'd plow in new tubes right next to them, and you'd go on. And you would have a capital replacement. The same as we're going to have to replace every blower, every piece of piping that goes in, everything wears out. So you just have to have an area to do it. And that's why we put them 2 to 4 feet on center, because I can then have a new place to plow it in. So when I rip it out, I'm disposing, I'm going to do it, and it's 12 inches down, so you got to rip it out. It's going to cause it to open up. What I would probably do then is I rip everything out. I would do like a good farmer. I would basically disc it, turn it over, plant a new cover crop, and then the following year, once the cover crop was established, 2 growing seasons, I would install the drip tubing and go through it. It'd give me a chance to really look at what the soils are, did the morphology change or anything like that. So that's really how we do it. But I'm talking hypothetically, because I've never done it, and I'm not aware of anyone who's ever done it.
And you had testified that, just talking about pharmaceuticals and chemicals, that the biological process that you have in there is just like your body. So I mean, yes, I understand that people drop down their pharmaceutics down to the drain, but as our body breaks down medicines, they're excreted through sweat, urine, feces, and there's byproducts of either the parent or any of the metabolites of that drug. So I guess my question is, at a wastewater treatment facility where it's fully treated and clarified, and then the effluent is discharged and, let's say, into a stream, and it's dispersed and it's diluted out even further, have you seen any cause for concerns of having concentrated either parent or metabolite pharmaceutics into various ground areas of concentration?
Let me take back and add another step that happens in here that I glossed over. Let me further explain some other things. Normally what happens is, when it comes in, the biology and the bugs that are in the treatment plant all come from our bodies. The vast majority of those bugs that would eat these and would absorb this become part of the sludge, which is dropped out and taken by a contract hauler and then it's either put into a landfill or into a incinerated. So that becomes part of the sludge. So basically what happens is, and a great point that you brought up, is that the bug's biology biomass that eats it absorbs it. Only clean water is discharged to the drip system. The majority of that pharmaceutical, same as we excrete it biologically, gets tied up into the sludge and goes through there. Is there some that could become soluble and be discharged into the drip system? Absolutely, that's a possibility. I'm not aware of any cases, to my knowledge, where they have picked up pharmaceuticals in the monitoring well, or it has become an issue on any of the known drip irrigation and or spray irrigation fields that I'm aware of or have listened to at any conference of that nature. So I can't answer your question, but pharmaceuticals have been around for a long time. They have been put into our individual on-lot systems, and I have not seen a pervasive problem where it has contaminated a groundwater supply.
Okay, and you had said that they haven't tested, they haven't tested positive in the test wells. Do you know if they actually test for pharmaceuticals in those test wells?
Oh, in these test wells, I don't know what they've tested for so far. Where I'm referring to is that they are tested in public drinking wells.
Okay.
And I haven't seen a direct impact of a drip disposal, spray irrigation disposal on an existing public supply well. That's the only place that I'm aware that they're tested for. Could be tested, individually by EPA or DEP sporadically, but wastewater plants don't test for it. We only test what we're required for, but all the public water supply wells. So that was the basis of my answer.
Okay, and just another clarification. Most drugs in the body are broken down either by the liver or the kidney, and there's some that are broken down by the gut bacteria in the stomach and small and large intestines. So anything that's coming out of the human body has already done that first pass and broken down the parent drug into metabolites. So it's more of, I guess, it's a question, and I think I know the answer. You don't know the answer, but
Yeah.
Yes, I understand that individual on-lot management, sand mound or a septic system. We're looking at one individual, but what I'm looking at is you have 317 properties that are going to be conveying their waste to a place. It's going to be concentrated and treated, and then even though it's a concentrated effluent of those 300 some homes are going to be over a small area of acreage. So I guess my concern is, has anyone in the industry, or has this been a topic of discussion with the DEP of having concentrated areas where chemicals or pharmaceutics that aren't fully processed out in specific areas?
No, that's never been a topic because it hasn't risen and hasn't shown up in public supply wells.
Okay.
And that's normally how it's determined.
And then just one final question. You had said that the sludge would be hauled off about monthly, I think is what the report showed?
Well, what the report is that the sludge holding aerobic digestion is sized for 30 days detention. That's to maximize the bugs eating themselves and reducing the mass down. Normally sludge is hauled off weekly by a contract hauler. So a certain percentage of it is, you don't fill the tank and empty it. You always take 25% out each week. So that way you always have excess, because you never know when there's going to be snow, you can't get to it for a week. So, that's how it's designed.
And you had said that sludge would be either, transported to the township treatment plant or a third-party treatment facility?
Yes, what's required is a manifest that takes it to a PADP approved treatment and disposal facility. It depends on how you write your sludge contracts. A lot of my municipal clients don't want to dispose ultimately in a landfill, so they're required to go to a wastewater treatment plant that utilizes an incinerator. East Norton Joint Sewer Authority, Hatfield Township Sewer Authority, Delcora has an incinerator. Or it could go to a larger Goose Creek wastewater treatment plant. Sees a lot of sludge. Pottstown receives it, and there it's processed through by their treatment process and disposed of in accordance with their permit.
Okay, great. And then just one final question around the O&A agreement, like the operation and maintenance agreement.
Okay.
You had said that if the township or third party or public utility were to take ownership of this treatment plant, but prior to taking ownership, would it be the applicant's responsibility to generate and create an operation and maintenance plan that meets the current regulations?
Normally what happens is, the concern of the township is the shortfall of finances. It's going to cost more to operate it than the income coming in. So normally the developer will contract with the township to have, and will subsidize their site. Or what is also common is that a third-party contract operator comes in and operates the system, which is paid for by the developer, until such time as the sewer rental income exceeds the operating costs of it, and that's the time that the township normally takes over dedication.
Okay.
So they wait till it operates in the black.
Great. Thank you. No further questions.
One question. You stated that many municipalities use drip irrigation, and you chose 3 types this evening, and then you chose the sequential for this project. Those other municipalities, do they mainly use the sequential type?
Upper Euclid Township, which is probably the closest one that has large volume drip disposal, utilizes sequential batch reaction process. Started out with Lagoon, and now they have a sequential batch reaction process. Applecross, East Brandywine Township Municipal Sewer Authority has a 300,000 gallon a day treatment plant they utilize It uses drip irrigation, it utilizes the sequential batch reactor process. So yes, that's the reason that I do it. And the reason is it produces probably the best quality output.
Thank you.
I want to back up a second to your document, Exhibit 24 of your report, Section 4. And you refer to the report of preliminary on-site water feasibility evaluation dated March 2017, and that your project proposes to dispose of, and you go into the whole paragraph about what it does based on that. Do you agree that you need to reevaluate based on your April 2017 data that you came up with and some of the reevaluation as a result of that?
Ultimately, all of the soil work and hydrogeologic work will have to be redone and witnessed by DEP. And that's why, based on my analysis, I wanted to ensure that there was more than sufficient, because as you do more additional detailed data, there will be areas that will be lost. There'll be areas that will have higher application rates and areas that will have lower. So in order to determine the feasibility this time, I wanted to make sure that there was an excess at the lowest known application rate in order to feel confident in drawing a conclusion. Ultimately, we'll do complete testing of the site.
It states drip fields were identified by, it goes into details in reference. I just want to make sure that you are acknowledging that you have an April 2017 report as well that will be considered in your disposal calculations and location, and that further plans will need to be submitted here based on what your current findings are.
The answer is yes. As additional information is taken into, the report can be updated, and to include that, I don't believe that there's anything in that April, I did review the April 13th report, that showed me that we would lose a significant area, and I believe that was a testimony of the expert before me. And the area that's not my field of expertise. My field of expertise is in the treatment and disposal of it, and I'll rely upon that expert to determine the required areas.
Okay, but your required evaluation in your report is based on that March 2017 report, and you stated that you would need to sort of reevaluate based on some of your test borings that you had. And so I want you just to acknowledge that you do have some further mapping and reconfiguration of the plan that we have before us, given some of your recent data from your
We could always reevaluate that
April
and
report.
to see what impact that would have on it.
And I had one more question before I'll hand it over to Tom for a second. You said you didn't, when Kristen asked you, you did not do any cost analysis. How did you come about thinking that a public sewer would be less expensive than a drip irrigation?
20 years of experience. I have looked at this and done this analysis probably 7 to 10 times every year, probably more frequently than that.
Okay, so did you do a cost analysis, excuse me, a cost for the drip irrigation?
Do I do a detailed? No. Do I know what it costs compared to the connection to public sewer? Absolutely.
Sure. Sorry, one final question. What would be the annual cost to operate a drip irrigation facility?
Witness is using a calculator.
Including treatment?
Yes.
Approximately $250,000, and that would also include capital depreciation. When you fully include, capital depreciation, That would be, and that is based upon a similar size one, and the analysis that I did for that generated the user fees.
And that includes the, I guess, the
Electricity,
operator.
operator, analysis, maintenance of the drip fields, a 5-year replacement plan to replace every pump, replacing blowers on a 15-year plan, replacing all filters on a 20-year plan, replacing the concrete tanks on a 75-year design life. All that goes into depreciation, along with your major labor. Your major cost is labor, followed by electricity, followed by sludge, followed by chemical production, followed by maintenance of the drip fields.
Great, thank you very much.
I have a few questions.
Sorry, this is my last one. Okay. You mentioned that the system would need a generator, and I didn't see a generator located on the plan. Where would that generator be for backup power, et cetera? And I assume it's an on-ground structure like a...
It's normally located in the control building. So it's normally located in the control building for the wastewater treatment plant. It could be located outside in a housing enclosure.
Where on this plan? Oh,
I don't believe the treatment plant is shown on that plan.
okay. What, is it on any plan?
No,
It's not located on a plan as a building at this time?
that is correct.
Thank you.
Good evening. A few questions. There was a lot of talk about the pharmaceuticals and what happens to them, and I know there's concerns with them entering the groundwater or a stream. And there was talk earlier about a public system. Do you have an opinion on what if the public system has a better chance of removing those pharmaceuticals than a system of this type?
It definitely does for 2 reasons. Number one, dilution is a factor. It is a larger